How to know if it's a trauma bond and not love. Humans are born to desire the feeling of being in love and being loved. However, it isn't something that just comes around easily. This is why some people mistake other connections for love even if it isn't. The same goes for trauma bonds. If you're having a hard time knowing if your relationship is truly based on love, continue to watch this video as Inspiration Calling presents to you signs your relationship is based on trauma bond and not love. Stay tuned until the end to see all the signs you might be in a trauma bond. But before we even get there, help us grow our community by subscribing to our channel. This is a safe space to learn more about you, your personality, and anything involving psychology. Please don't forget to click the notification bell too so we can notify you whenever we upload new content. If you're done with that, let's get straight into the video. When someone is in an abusive relationship, a trauma bond can form. This refers to the emotional attachment an abuse victim develops for their abuser. Some victims stay in their toxic relationships because they think of it as love even when it isn't. This does not necessarily mean that the only abusive relationships affected by these are the violent ones. Even when there's just manipulation in the relationship, it can potentially form a trauma bond. Usually, trauma bonds happen in relationships with a mix of fear and connection. Even when there is the element of fear and pain, the victim in the toxic relationship cannot even think of leaving the relationship because they are met with the connection and positive moments they had. This makes them think that maybe the relationship dynamic can change. They may even think that their love can change their partners. This fuels the trauma bond more because the victim will now focus more on the positives of the relationship in hopes of repairing and preserving it. To some people, the dynamic of trauma bonding also keeps them engaged in the relationship because of the mix of fear and connection that is highly unpredictable. Now you may be wondering if trauma bonding can mimic the feeling of love so well. Are we bound to not detect it? No, there are telltale signs of trauma bonding in relationships. Here are some of them. 1. Relationship pace. Have you ever heard your mother or any of your friends tell you maybe your connection with another person is going too fast? They may even give you advice to just take things slow because you are not in a rush. Well, they may have seen how unrealistic your relationship pace is. Although there's no timeline for love, a quick pace is just too good to be true, right? A fast relationship pace can be a sign of trauma bonding because there is a high chance love bombing is included in the journey. This refers to a manipulation tactic or the initial phase where the abuser showers the victim with love, compliments, extravagant gifts, and acts of service just to get them closer. Although it is very obvious that the actions of the abuser are too big and too grand, the victim may not be able to handle this properly because during that moment the abuser is making them feel loved. This can boost the victim's ego, causing them to turn a blind eye on the red flags of the relationship. Always remember that real love takes time. The connection you build is important. That's why it shouldn't be rushed but instead built slowly but carefully. You and your partner should both be able to slowly open up to each other through time without the use of any manipulation technique. 2. Highs and lows. They say that when your relationship feels like an unpredictable change to hot and cold all the time, you should run. It is a common red flag if someone could not be consistent with their feelings and affection for you, but did you know that these highs and lows can also tell you if you're in the relationship for the trauma bond? If you feel like your relationship is composed of extreme highs and lows but no in between, then it may be time you rethink that connection. This may be not love but a trauma bond. You can usually spot this whenever there are moments of intense fear followed by moments of intense connection. This is the type of instability you cannot see in true love. 3. Communication. People who are in love with their partner's desire to know them on a deep level. This is why most of the time, they try to engage in meaningful conversations with them. However, it is the opposite for trauma bonding. In trauma bonds, little to no deep communication is given. In fact, conversations about serious and deep things may even be avoided. This is harmful because of two major reasons. First, no communication robs you of the chance to get to know your partner. Without it, your relationship is bound to fail. Second, if you cannot talk about other serious things, there is a high tendency that there will be no avenue to voice out and communicate your needs and wants to your partner. Always remember that true love always prioritizes open communication. It's not true love if you are not given an equal chance to communicate your boundaries, needs, and wants. 4. Feelings. Trauma bonds have the potential to be very addicting because of their dramatic highs and lows. The victim is uncertain about when they will receive the subsequent reward, which is connection in this instance. They continue the relationship in search of the next reward as a result of this. They express gratitude after receiving the award. They often hold themselves responsible when they don't. Some people grow an obsessive need for the approval or validation of another person. They might consequently find themselves in a toxic union that resembles an addiction more than anything else. This is frequently true in relationships that have been traumatized, where one person feels drawn back to their abuser despite the relationship's harmful effects. One of the most common reasons people stick with unhealthy relationships is fear. Victims of abuse usually experience constant fear that their abuser will exact revenge. Due to this, people may choose to maintain the relationship even though it is detrimental to their mental and emotional health. On the other hand, being in a love relationship feels like a privilege. Intimacy and connection are overflowing. It makes both lovers feel fortunate to be together. They are eternally grateful for the connection. 5. Power. A relationship based on true love feels like a partnership where both of you are equals in everything. On the other hand, if the connection you've created is founded on trauma bonding, you might feel that there is an imbalance of power between you and your partner. Depending on the role of the person, he might have more power if they are the abuser while the victim holds little to nothing at all. This power is used to manipulate and control the victim to do whatever the abuser wants. This is one of the biggest red flags that you should avoid. If you have been observing this in your relationships, then maybe it's time to rethink things. It's not normal to feel controlled whenever you are in a relationship. 6. Dependence. In abusive relationships, codependency is very prevalent. Through manipulation, blackmail, torture, gaslighting, and other techniques, the victim is made to rely on the abuser. The victim's sense of self and self-worth slowly disappear over time. When two people are in love, there is healthy dependency between them. They both fill their own tanks and each other's tanks. Interdependence is a balanced relationship between dependency and independence. 7. Attachment type. Although there's a lot of factors why a person has an insecure attachment style like childhood or parenting, it is still a sign you should look out for if both you and your partner have this way of loving. More often than not, both of you have formed a trauma bond. Most of the time, those with anxious attachment styles get trauma bonded with those who have avoidant attachment style. Ideally, you and your partner should develop a secure attachment style so your relationship can be smooth sailing. 8. Boundaries. In a trauma bond, there are either flimsy or non-existent boundaries. As a result, the abused person may become entwined with them, taking on their beliefs and emotions, while also falling apart in the process. With open communication and sensitivity, a couple in love may maintain healthy limits. That's it for today's video. If you or someone you know may be in a relationship that is not based on love but more based on a trauma bond, please talk to a mental health professional to get help or counseling to either cope more easily or leave this relationship. Only a professional can truly know what issues you may be facing and help you to make better mental health decisions. Please leave any of your questions, suggestions, or reactions in the comments section below. We'd love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can get notified whenever a new video is up. Until next time. Thank you for watching.